Okay. Okay, so let's kick off. Building or buying, navigating the Power Apps and Dynamics 365 dilemma. So I'll start with a quick intro about myself. So I'm working as a lead functional consultant for a Hitachi, to be precise, D365 lead functional consultant. I'm based in Scotland and I do have my own blog and I also create some LinkedIn content. I know I haven't done it of the recent weeks, if not months, but I'll be back at some point. And also I'm a user, I'm a leader for a user group for Power Platform UX, UI and accessibility. So today's session is about the dilemma in between Power Apps and also the D365. So how that all started, depending when you actually join on the Power Platform. To start with, a few years ago, I don't even know, probably over 10 years ago, we started with a CRM system. Then Microsoft converted to what they call D365. We had the online version of it. We had the on-premise version of it before we even have the online version. And then within the last few years, that kind of converted into the Power Platform, and Microsoft introduced us with the Power Apps. Within the consultancies I was working with, to start with, there was just one team dealing with the Dynamics 365 and naturally moving towards the Power Platform. Now the kind of more trend is that Power Platform and the 365 are two separate teams and two separate sets of skills that we have. But also from the perspective of like the functionality and technicality behind it and what the customer need and want, there's also obviously that separation. So as you know, on the Power Apps help us to build those custom and tailored business application, when we can have also the citizen developers creating low code, no code application. But on the Dynamics side, this is described as an enterprise, as a module used for much larger scale for both on the ERP side, which is the enterprise resource planning, and the CRM side, which is things like customer service or sales and so on. So with the Dynamics 365, we have things like the regular updates and support coming from Microsoft, but we are also tied up to Microsoft roadmap of developing new functionality and also deprecating. So in today's session, I would like to dive into slightly of my experiences working with both of those aspects and what are kind of the key differences between them, beyond what I just described. So kind of the initial key factors, when like this speaking with the customers or anyone really interested and in kind of looking what would be the best solution, would it be obviously the business needs, and considering what exactly is your process. So kind of starting in a very classic way, okay, do the business analysis and then taking from there. But it doesn't work in the isolation. There's always going to be the budget constraints and also the time to deploy. And another kind of big aspect of it is what's going to happen in the future. Are we going to build small and remain small, or is there possibility we might have to extend? And again, how to be like that future proof. So again, I'm going to dive into those individual aspects and explore on that more. So let's start with the cost. Obviously, lots of things are driven by the cost for individuals and organizations as well. So for the on the Power Apps perspective, when it comes to choosing that as your solution, on the pro side, we tend to have much lower initial investment for especially for any simple apps. We don't pay for any unnecessary features. We build exactly what we need. Again, the licensing model is constantly changing. So if I'm saying any incorrect information with regards to licenses, please feel free to correct me in a chat. If you know better, I will give you my up-to-date information. So again, on the Power Apps, I understand that it's something called pay as you go model, when you can more flexibly change the number of licenses you have for the Power Apps. And again, it's more appropriate for the small scale solutions. However, on the downside of investing in the Power Apps, although sometimes you want to start small, within quite quickly that can our solution become quite quickly more complex, and obviously that there will be more associated cost with it. And again, if we're building something from scratch, that will require much more input from us when it comes to the maintenance. Usually for the Power Apps, it's more recommended to go with the internal resource for the support, rather than reaching out to any external suppliers for it. So again, both of them are associated with the cost. And again, we have some hidden cost that comes with there are some hidden costs that comes with building a custom Power App solution. Again, we need to create things like making sure that our application are compliant and so on. On the Dynamics side, it's slightly more predictable licensing fees. Usually, again, to best of my knowledge, the way the Microsoft works, the customers can reach out and they can agree on the long-term agreement and have some beneficial rates for the licenses. But again, that might tie them up in a more long-term investment. However, as I said, at least is that no. We also tend to have lower development cost. And again, this is based on assumption that we are taking the product off the shelf as it is. We tend to refer to it as a kind of vanilla deployment, rather than really adjusting the dynamics to be as the processes. We are more taking it and changing the internal processes to be more aligned with the actual product. Things like this still happen. And obviously on the Pro side, because we are using Microsoft as a vendor for our product, any issues we can support, we can rely on their direct support. And again, we do have that value for the money. Okay, we're paying much more than for a Power Apps, but Microsoft, it's constantly investing and developing new features. Obviously, the recent trend, it's everything Copilot and AI driven. So yes, we don't pay any extra for that. It's always it's included in those regular updates we are getting. But then, as I mentioned before, although we know that cost upfront for the licenses, it still required that long-term commitment to that. And again, if you want to start customizing anything to move away from that vanilla product to be more aligned with what the business needs, those customer that is associated with increased costs, and in general, because of the higher licenses cost in general, that return of investment into any Dynamics 365 deployment, it's always going to be longer. But then again, when it comes to the cost, obviously, if we want to drive a fancy car, we need to pay for it, and the same for The same for any software we will investing. So I found the recent published report from Gartner, where the Microsoft it's still in the leader on the leaderboard when it comes to the CRM systems. And again, similarly, I pulled some recent reviews from the Gartner Peer Insight. So again, Microsoft compared to the key competitors like Salesforce and SAP, they are still one of the leaders. So we are paying extra, but then we are really getting one of the best software that is out there. So the cost, obviously, it's not the only thing we need to worry about. I'm just checking on time, 20 past. Okay. The next thing is obviously scalability and flexibility. So although yes, we can customize and build our powers exactly as we need it, the challenge it is quite challenging to really make sure that we can scale that in the future, and then we need to consider two sides that obviously we will have more users using the system, but also the number of different records that we'll be processing. Again, for me, this is the skill on its own. Unless you really understand how that should be done, you can quite easily fail on that. While on the dynamic side, obviously the product already is designed to handle those enterprise grade operation. And again, the scalability also comes with the fact that, okay, we can start with one module, let's say it's sales, and then we can expand it more easily to add additional functionality, but by plugging marketing module and also the customer service and moving to also adding that finance and operation to the mix as well. But in the same respect, there is some that flexibility trade-off that come with the dynamics. We are taking the products as it is. I did already mention that if you want to adjust it, that becomes additional costs around it, and it's not as flexible as building something from scratch. Implementation time. Again, for building power apps, it can be done quite quickly. We can easily create some simple apps even by using the existing templates. There's so much. There are also lots of resources available online that can help us to download and acquire some code, and we can use that for our apps. But then again, if we want to build more complex application, obviously we'll be investing more time. And again, comparing to the dynamics, depending on what sort of implementation we're going for. In the past, our work on the implementation, when as I mentioned before, customer just from what they're looking for was for that vanilla deployment to literally within 4 weeks, everything was done, starting from the workshop and defining the requirements to the user training and acceptance testing and that deployment. So things can be really done quickly if customer is just willing to take the product as it is. So again, on the integration side, it's in some respect it's quite similar on both sides. We have the flexibility of connecting. There's so many existing connectors. We can use the Power Automate and so on to connect on both sides, Power Apps and Dynamics. But then again, from my perspective, the Dynamics adds that extra integration options with different vendors. I'm trying to think about good example that I can only think about a very old one of using MailChimp with the Dynamics. There used to be something called Power MailChimp, so that was like a ready pre-installed solution to connect those two. and then on some of the external vendors website, when you already have that separate license, you can also download and install those connectors. When from the Powerhouse perspective, if creating your own data model and so on, it might be more challenging in that respect. Again, I very briefly mentioned the maintenance as well. So the positive things that obviously we have that full control over the updates and enhancements that goes to our Power Apps, and we also can align that with what is the priority for us as a business. However, again, we do need to have dedicated internal resources for maintenance. And on dynamic side, again, we have the constant updates, and it's not only about having nice and fancy features. It's also ensuring the security of the solution, and all the the important things, and being compliant, and giving the business exactly what they need in the background without them really worrying about it. However, on the downside is that obviously we have no control over it. We can temporarily push any updates, but eventually twice a year the businesses are forced to go and update what is the latest solution. So on the kind of risk side, probably some of it will be echo. But when building Power Apps, lots of businesses will decide to utilize the Dataverse for that. But again, there's also some scenarios when we use the SharePoints and different sources. So from my perspective, that is associated with the risk, especially when we are not considering that maybe in the future we actually want to move some of the processes and use the Dynamics. That will be way more risky to kind of move from one to another. Probably the best way forward will be to pretty much start from scratch. Anything things like access and security, from my perspective, that needs to be more manual oversight as well. Again, building any custom connectors and so on, again, heavily rely on the knowledge and experience of the resources involved in that. And again, it's a manual. Things like obviously the compliance as well. Just checking on time. Similarly, there's more limited governance features that come with the Power Apps, and any deployment, if the things might break with those updates. And overall, again, as I mentioned before, if things are not built properly, there might be some significant performance issues, especially for the complex solution. And on Dynamics side, unfortunate thing are the deprecation. And when it comes to the deprecation from Microsoft, it can be as serious as completely deprecating a module. And the latest example is the PSA. When the PSA was deprecated, and everyone and all the customers using the PSA were forced to move to the project operation. Yes, there was a way to apply that upgrade to move from one to another, but on the paper that looks really well. However, I had some insight from a couple of projects when things didn't go exactly as Microsoft prescribed. Again, on the other latest deprecations are things like the outbound marketing. I keep saying marketing. I actually refer to the customer journey. So yes, the outbound marketing will be all deprecated. We need to move to the real-time marketing. So yes, it's just forcing the businesses to change it. And anytime those changes are coming in, some of the changes cannot be handled internally, businesses are forced out to reach out to consultants for support like this. Again, another thing is the continuous changes to the licensing model. A few years ago, we had the customer engagement model where the customers invested once and they had the multiple modules coming with it. That's completely deprecated now. If we want to have the separate modules, that all needs to be purchased separately or as the add-ons. Obviously, all of them we are also facing lots of unwanted updates. Some of the feature will require enablement. Some of the feature needs to be enabled by the admin, but some of them will just automatically going to be pushed in, and they will have to be the opposite. When we don't want them, they need to be disabled. Another thing is from the risk perspective, when it comes to Dynamics, it's a bit lack of control for the capacity. Again, over the last few years, I noticed that sometimes Microsoft can push an update overnight, and all of a sudden there is a significant spike in the capacity. So if someone is not monitoring that and it's not being proactive about having enough capacity purchased, that can cause a bit of an issue. And again, some of the mandatory updates can definitely impact the existing customization as well, because things might not be compatible with what is coming and what is being deprecated. And again, when we're customizing any elements with the Dynamics, unless they are applying to the best practices, they can cause issues, but also Microsoft might refuse to support that might refuse to support certain functionality if we completely creating a contradicting logic to what they built. So yes, that's kind of repeated what I just said, affecting the existing implementations. What else I wanted to mention very briefly? Oh yes, sorry, I know what I meant by that. So the version upgrades affecting the custom implementation. So if we have any custom implementation coming into the system at the same time, Microsoft might be pushing their upgrades to the platform. So I recommend checking on a couple of things. First one is something called dark hours for the maintenance. I have actually a couple of links that I can share with you, so I'll put them in the chat. And there's so another latest feature that only recently came out of the preview. It's managing the maintenance window for the Dynamics, when we can specifically say, okay, if we have any, if Microsoft has any upgrades, to push it in that specific time, so they are separated from any of customization we want to push in. Keith, Sarah, how am I doing for time?
Yeah, doing good. Yeah, you've got another up to 15 minutes if you want.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. So yes, of course, I could not run a session without talking about user experience. So if you know me, if you know me, you know what I mean. So from the user perspective on the Power Apps, we have the full control, especially for the Canvas app, what we building and creating, but then and it's the same experience for actually the app creators, when we can have that intuitive drag and drop to nice and quickly create the apps the same with the model driven app. We have that framework, we can easily spin up a new model driven app as well, but then in the same respect, okay, we have a full control of over the UX and UI. However, whether you want it or not, if you want to build a nice and user-friendly apps, you need to have at least basic knowledge on some of the UX and UI principle. On the other side, for the Dynamics, yes, everything is ready for us to use. However, if you spin up the even like a trial environment and start playing around it, it might be quite overwhelming. It is really feature rich. So if that can be too much for the user, so kind of the approach would it be to anything that is not needed, to hide it, to disable it, and so on, and really kind of give the user the functionality they need. Otherwise, it will be too much for them. And because of that, obviously, the more training is kind of required rather than for those applications being more intuitive. However, unlike the positives are, it's obviously if we working with the multiple modules, they will have they will have the standard navigation across them, and also like the interface, and again, because of it's a Microsoft product, the look and feel will also be not only within Dynamics but within the other application from Microsoft. But again, we can use we can utilize the role-based access and enable some personalization. Again, just installing the solution as it is. There are some pre-existing security roles, so we have like a role of a marketeer and a role of a salesperson, so we can apply them, and that naturally will limit the functionality that those individual users will see. And again, when on the Power Apps perspective, if we want to have any new features and enhance that user experience, is all on us to really build that and develop that from scratch. But on the Dynamics side, obviously Microsoft, again, as I mentioned, is investing into it, and with not those all new feature also comes the innovations and obviously enhancing that user experience and adding AI to complete certain tasks, find information, and so on. So for this one, I'm going to be honest, I definitely use AI tool to find out, okay, what will be the future trends for the Power Apps. So again, we need to kind of take that into account. So a bit of self-love from AI to tell us about AI. So the trends I found from the from ChatGPT, it's incoming AI integration, which it's already definitely happening. Extended reality to create immersive experiences, interactive application, and obviously continuous empowerment of the citizen developers. And then on the Dynamic side, again, very similar, obviously, constant developing the AI specific features and so on. Cloud native development, again, the power of cloud computing. And I don't know if there are any, I'm assuming that there still might be some customers using on-premise Dynamics, although I have a feeling that was actually completely deprecated. Again, apologies, I don't have that. I haven't managed to confirm that. And obviously the data-driven insights now with the Fabric and so on, everything it's connected together, and then the Dynamics is definitely aiming to that direction, to provide the data-driven insight, use different tools, and then bring them back to the users. So like taking everything into like account and actually making that decision, okay, so what would be the good solution for us as a business who's looking to implement one or the other, or us as a consultant who need to advise to a customer, we can provide with a decision matrix, and even use some like a weight and scoring against different factors, and really compare and decide, okay, what is really important when it comes to choosing that right solution. So moving forward, when it comes to kind of more common pitfalls when it comes to decide between one approach and the other one, is obviously understanding the complexity. Again, my experiences are that we always start simple, but then, and when we actually start building the application for customer, that always, it's always new kind of requirements coming in, because like up front, not every, there is no kind of prediction, okay, we want this and we're going to need that as well. So obviously, like that proper business analysis at front, it's very, very crucial to try to uncover as much as possible up front. Again, when using D365, I saw it that although it's from like the standard look and feel of Dynamics 365, the product was taken in a completely different direction, and was heavily over customized. Unfortunately, that obviously have some risk associated, as I mentioned before. Another thing is obviously neglecting the integration needs, and kind of looking at the situation, and not looking at the situation holistically, and also not really thinking long term. Okay, we are here as a business, but where we want to be, and how that's and whether that is factor in the decision making process. Other thing to mention when it comes to the choosing between one and the other, it's also something called I will get that hybrid approach. So obviously using both Power Apps for some of the customized task and application when a limited number of users will have access to it, and then still having the Dynamics and Dynamics licenses for more of the core business processes. But when we're going for that hybrid approach, again, one of the things to also keep in mind, it's something referred to as restricted table. Again, this is I have another link to share with you. That even when we're building the Power Apps, yes, we can use the Dataverse, but within the Dataverse, we won't be able to use all of the tables. Some of the tables do require Dynamics license. One of the example, it's a case or SLAs, so they require a specific Dynamics module. So again, we need to be mindful of it. And another associated with that term, it's multiplexing, when we can see the trend when we want to save on the licenses and only give the Dynamics license to a limited number of users, and for the rest of the users to have the Power Apps license. However, we cannot have any like processes in the background when someone doesn't have a Dynamics license but makes some updates and pushes those updates to the case, because it's as I said, without appropriate license, the updates to those restricted savable should not be considered as a solution. It is doable, but then if Microsoft will audit the system, obviously, I don't know, there might be some fines or anything. I don't know exactly how Microsoft handles that, but again, we need to be aware of that. So kind of thinking about the real world examples, how things are approached. So for the small businesses, small business might be kind of scared away by investing into the Dynamics because of the license, but it doesn't mean that they don't. I did work on few implementation for Dynamics when I dealt with charities and non-profit organization. Again, for organization like this, Microsoft does offer preferential rate. So it's definitely worth looking into it and not being scared by the price tag you see on the Microsoft site. So kind of for the medium enterprise, that's possibly where it's really worth again investing more heavily into the Dynamics 365 and the different modules that come with it. Again, one of the example of kind of more medium-sized project I worked on was to move from Salesforce to Dynamics. Again, customer at the time, I think they invested in around 500 licenses, and that was a combination of both sales and customer service, and then was done across a few countries. And again, the kind of quite common model for the large corporation is also to have the Dynamics 365 for those core operation, but also invest in the Power Apps. Again, things like this, there are different exemptions to the rule. I heard of there's one from a fellow consultant. I heard there is a financial institution somewhere in Scotland that they just went and invested in a few hundred licenses across different Dynamics modules, and they're just trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of apply that in their business. But again, we are talking about large corporation with quite deep pockets to be able to do something like this and follow that kind of approach. So kind of thinking about like potential really a framework for that decision making, just to kind of bring everything together. So definitely looking into the company strategy, mission, and vision. So again, where are we now, but where we want to be in few years' time. And again, really not only thinking about that scalability and so on, but actually trying to implement a solution that will help us to get there. A few years ago, I worked for RBS, and at the time their vision was to be a #1 bank for customer service, trust, and advocacy by 2020. So them implementing a CRM solution at the time was one of the enablers to actually get them to where they want to be. The next one is obviously really focusing on what are the key business requirements and user needs. Obviously, there's always going to be budget constraints. No one has unlimited amount of money, so kind of thinking about the implementation costs, the licenses, the maintenance, and so on. Obviously, thinking about the time we have for the deployment. For example, there was a really big push through the pandemic when there was lots of organization relying on being in the office and working from the office, and all of a sudden, yes, we actually need to push and go to cloud. So we will have the time constraints and try to accelerate that process in a situation like this, or even extreme situation like that. Again, I mentioned that a few times, so like another one is the escapability needs, but also things like, that business value as well. So what else we wanted to achieve? We want to like improve that overall quality of the service we provide to our customer, but also, improve the user productivity, employee satisfaction, and so on. Rather than having multiple application, we want to aim for as they refer it, one-stop shop for everything. So kind of another few last words from my perspective. I don't want to repeat myself. I'm just going to call it out of the things I did not cover. So one of the things we can definitely do is develop POC, proof of concept, and develop very kind of quick mockups for using both Power Apps built from scratch or using the D365, and also consider that a hybrid approach. Again, engage with Microsoft. Again, we're coming from so as a business or a customer, when considering that, either seek support directly from Microsoft or Microsoft partners. But if you're already working on a Microsoft partner, again, you can directly engage with Microsoft and seek for some support in that respect if you are not entirely sure. So evaluating that cost, availability of resources and implementation time, planning from growth, and just taking everything into consideration and making that final informed decision, rather than just thinking, okay, I saw the demo for Dynamics, I like it, and I want to invest in that. Okay, that's it from me. Any questions?
Again, if you just want to raise your hand if anyone's got a question. Or has Anna done such a good job that she's answered everything so far? Hi, Shamim.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I just had a question. I've put it in the chat and some people have made some comments, but nowadays there's a lot of reliance because Microsoft have advertised Power Platform as being this citizen, anyone basically can make an app kind of thing. So a lot of organizations are relying on internal citizen developers to create apps for their organization. But obviously there's a certain point where it's too complex, the process is too complex, and it will make much more sense financially, security wise, everything wise, to go with an out of box solution as Dynamics. But there's a lot of pushback when there's been so much reliance on that internal team. How would you convince an organization like that to make the switch to using Dynamics?
So again, it just depends on the type of application they have, because you are using internally. If there is an actual kind of use case within the organization, so like I mentioned before, there's a separate modules. So there's like a sales and a customer service and the marketing. So I will start with the problem you wanted to solve to start with. Is it like supporting the sales processes? Then it's worth considering the sales module. If it's managing like the finance and operation, there's another module for that. So really kind of think what apps you currently have and what they're trying to do, and then see if there is already an existing solution that can be utilized for it, and really look into the benefits of it and that business value. Okay, something we created something internally, but not necessarily might be compliant with certain things. It takes too long to maintain it. It takes too long to that user experience I mentioned. So it's really kind of get to the bottom of it, what the business wants to have. That's how I would approach that. And again, with the Dynamics, technically, you can try to install the solution and work it out yourself, but the way it's built, unless there is someone has at least some sort of experience with it, it might be quite difficult to configure that as well. So there's two sides of that investment: bringing someone to help with that implementation, and obviously the product investment as well.
Okay, thanks a lot, Anna. Thank you.
No problem. Any more questions? I'm looking around. I only know that Sharon, you work with Dynamics, don't you?
I think James just.
Oh, James. Okay.
There, go for it, James.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. So like, when do you think the crossover between Canvas apps and model-driven apps is going to be more of a thing? Because they're starting to blend more and more, and merge together now. When do you think that's going to happen?
Like blend in what respect?
So you can have custom pages in a model-driven app, which is just a Canvas app really, and it just feels like model-driven apps are almost starting to have the foundations put in place to become more of a Canvas app, and everything just starts to join into one kind of beautiful, easy system.
But I don't envisage that completely kind of merging into one. I know that from the Dynamics perspective, there is more of a talk of like the ERP system that they have different look and feel to become more like a model-driven apps. But I don't kind of envisage that completely kind of merging into one. Yes, of course, like there is lots of kind of requirements from the customer to kind of lift up the experiences with the model-driven app. I'm currently working on a project when it's very PCF heavy. It's PCS everywhere, just to kind of lift that engagement with the records. But as I said, I just don't envisage that completely becoming a one product. There's too many differences at the moment between them. So this is my kind of personal opinion. Sorry, contacts. Okay. Franco, you have a question?
Yeah, question for the audience, really. Just be very interested to see how many of this audience use Dynamics or implement Consult on Dynamics versus how many on the Power App side. Maybe drop that in the chat if you wouldn't mind.
Great stuff.
It depends.
Oh, straight in there, Sean. Straight in there.
Yeah. As soon as I saw your smile, Sean, I knew it was gonna be like some awesome answer from you coming. Apologies, I do have another hand from Judy. Yes.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for that. That was really great. I have a question about the industry accelerators. Have you tried using any of those?
Try using of what sort of?
Accelerators. So there's one for there's one for education, government, media, and entertainment, nonprofit, and telecommunications. Have you heard of those?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just for me, but you completely broke.
The audio cut out for me a little bit there, Judy. But if you could put it in the chat as well, please, just in case.
Yeah.
Thanks, Judy.
Oh yes, of course, the industry's accelerators.
Yes, those ones.
Yes, personally, I haven't really worked with them. One of the project was considering the one for charity, but no, I don't really have any hands-on experience with that. But it's definitely something worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, they in the link I sent you. If you just go to a specific one, it extends the common data model, and they give you sample model-driven apps and apps and sample Power BI dashboards. It's for ISVs and maybe for us, not an ISV. I'm not an ISV. Just to leverage from.
Yes, so like as I mentioned, like one of the project we start looking into the non-profit one, but I don't even remember reason why the customer did not decide to go for it. So apologies, I cannot really answer this one for you.
No worries.
But yeah, definitely a good shout. Franco, another one.
Judy, just to jump in there. Be very careful in those ones, because we have had feedback and that there is certain documentation out there which is actually saying that they are starting to deprecate some of those areas. And what I'll do is I'll dig out it's not NDA. It's actually available. The links are actually available onto the Microsoft Learn Docs. I'll drop the links into the chat. But there is a talk out there that they're actually seeing certain of these areas Microsoft are seeing certain of these areas as areas that they're not going to be continuing to invest in, and that they've got other routes to actually where they're looking at certain other partners that they're kind of supporting to bring in other products that will build on your standard out of the box dynamic sales apps and things like that. So I'll drop all those links into the chat for everybody so that everybody can see that.
Thanks so much, Sharon.
Yeah, no worries, Judy. Sorry to talk over whoever was coming next.
That's a great insight, though. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Yes, I was actually directing question to you because out of the audience, I know for sure that you've been working with Dynamics, so I'm sure you have a view on that as well. Sean, apologies. I can see your hand.
Oh, I think, Sharon, you actually kind of answered. I was going to ask Anna with those industry accelerators. I found that they have like too much stuff and I almost want some of it. And I spend more of my time like deleting it. And I didn't know if that was like your experience as well. But if they're going away, I'm just not going to look at them anymore.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those where it'll be piecemeal. It's like a lot of things with Dynamics. You see little bits kind of like going away piecemeal. And it's like what I was blogging about on Monday about where we're seeing certain deprecations happening because Copilot's taking everything over, and we're going to be seeing like bits and pieces are being taken away on those accelerators because I don't think they are as popular. And I think what you do find is exactly what you're saying, Sean, is that people kind of like start with them and that you think, wow, that's amazing. You've got all of this kind of like stuff free, but as you say, it's too much. We have to actually refine it down. And it's almost like it's better to actually start from the base product and then just customize it up rather than taking too much and refining it down, if that makes sense, Sean.
For sure, thank you.
But yeah, we'll drop those in.
Great questions. Any more? Okay, Anna, I think you're off the hook.
Oof, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was such a brilliant presentation. I know I certainly learned a lot, but yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. That was awesome. Awesome slides as always. I think that got dropped in the comments.
Thank you
really...
for having me. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, I always love that extra character from the artwork and the slides. It's always good. Always welcome as well.